online are already connected as well. Yeah. So we will start from this row and then we go like this, and then from the back to the front.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Kimani from the African Economic Research Consortium in Kenya. I'm the lead manager there, in charge of the training program. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Please permit me to sit because of the documents on my legs. My name is Ronke Kusoko, CEO, Employment Clinic.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is Sadiq Alofi, an economist at the NESG.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Mrs. Jane Chukwudebela. I'm from FIRO. I'm the Climate Change Desk Officer and Acting Head Environmental Technology Division. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Opina Luke Ezerian. I'm the team lead in the Business Development Department of Epis Limited. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Bright Ereha. I work with Pan Atlantic University. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Olusegun Mishakin. I work with the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. I'm the head of research and the chief economist for the organization. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Shay Vincent. I'm an economist at the NESG.
Oh, okay. Okay, my name is Tayo Loshide. I work with an organization called Mind the Gap.
All right, you're welcome, sir.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Benga Babatunde. I work with EcoBank.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Temi Efa. I'm a learning advisor with Stanbic IBTC Group.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Moyo Akib. I'm learning advisor with Stanbic IBTC.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Faith Ioa. I'm an economist at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group.
The clap is going down. Let's clap. Let's clap.
Good morning, everyone. Ikele Maria is my name. I'm an Assistant General Manager Planning, Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria.
Good morning. My name is Jacob Ipoga. I work with Continental Economic Magazine as the Chief Executive Officer. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mohammed Yelwa from University of Abuja, one of the research fellow from Africa Economic Research Consortium. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kende Oluwashimomotosho. I'm from National Center for Technology Management. I'm one of the principal investigators on AERC projects. Thank you.
My name is Adewale Musiliu Adeolu, Department of Economics, Federal University of Technology, Akure. I'm also presenting in this session.
Good morning, everyone. Wasi Adekule is my name. I work as an economist at the NESG. I'm also one of the presenters today. Thank you.
Right. Did any other person come in and hasn't introduced his or herself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Robert Ipoga. I work with Continental Economic Magazine as editor.
Right, you're welcome, sir. Let's jam our hands together for him, the only media man here. Right. You're all welcome, and thank you once again for making it out here at this time to hear all our researchers and comment on their presentations. Do we have the online people connected? Yes. Okay, so if they can hear us, you're all welcome, those of us that have joined virtually to this very important conversation that we'll be having today. As we all know, we're here because NESG, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and AERC converged this forum. And we're here to talk about human capital development in Africa, narrowing in on Nigeria as a case study. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction, talk a bit about the background, and then we call on our very distinguished Dr. I'm going to call on Dr. Umisha King, as well as Dr. Tom Kimani, to give us both the opening remarks and the welcome address. Now, in looking at what we're here to discuss today, I think it's important that we remind ourselves what it actually really means when we call it human capital. Human capital as the education, the skills, and the health of the people, becoming more and more critical for development, one in evolving and emerging economies like Africa, but more importantly, in Nigeria as a case study. We say that without human capital, countries cannot sustain economic growth and will not have a workforce prepared for the more highly skilled jobs of the future. They will not be able to compete effectively in the fast-growing, evolving markets, especially globally. Human capital has become more and more critical as a transformational factor for African economies. Currently, sub-Saharan Africa scores the lowest of all world regions on the World Bank Human Capital Index at about 0.40 points, measuring how well countries invest in the next generation of workers. Meanwhile, Africa's low human capital can be explained by three interlinked factors, namely survival, health, and education. Human capital in Africa requires a massive and coordinated effort to strengthen the size, the efficiency, and the impact of investments in its people. Moreover, investing in people through nutrition, healthcare, quality education, and skills help develop human capital and is crucial to ending extreme poverty and creating more inclusive societies. Enhancing the capital of African government to make policy decisions that will confront the challenges of building human capital for accelerated inclusive development in a 21st century context is therefore fundamental to improving the capabilities of our continent, as well as its policymakers, to address the key constraints on human capital accumulation. Over the last 3 years, AERC, with the support from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, have implemented several activities under the Building Policy Research institutions to support human capital programs, specifically the collaborative research projects on human capital development in Africa, which seeks to generate evidence on the challenges of building human capital for accelerated inclusive development, as well as provide policy reforms that will enable Africa's young people to grow up with the optimal health and equipped with the right skills to compete in the digitized global economy. To this end, 5 human capital development papers on Nigeria are the main focus of this in-country dissemination workshop organized by the NESG in collaboration with, organized by the NESG and AERC in collaboration with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Omishakin, and I'm going to read also his profile to come and give us the welcome address. You see, I'm so used to doing this virtually that I'm very slow at flipping my papers. I do apologize for that. Dr. Omishakin is the Chief Economist and the Director of Research. Is Dr. Omishakin here? Yes, all right. Of Research and Development at the NESG. He's an economist with over 20 years of experience in academics, in industry, and public policy environment. Is widely recognized and consulted as a leading expert on economic and public policy strategies in Nigeria and Africa. Dr. Omishakin has worked extensively with relevant stakeholders, including government, private sector, and donor organizations, to develop and evaluate public policy for job creation and inclusive growth. Please let's jam our hands together as we make welcome Dr. Omishakin to give us the welcome address.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. I was trying to look out for the Dr. Omishakin because I was thinking this is this seems not to be me, but it's a pleasure to be here this morning. And I know we are here for a very serious discussion, looking at different areas of human capital development and how that can also inform different policy recommendations at various levels of government, whether at the national, state, and the local government. Indeed, as you are rightly said, human capital development, it's not just one of those development indicators. Indeed, it is the development indicator. Whether you talk about measuring countries or comparing regions by their capacity to produce, their competitiveness, their inclusive growth, their inclusive society, or any other developmental, indicators, without a focus on how developed the human capital is in such a country or the region, every other indicator will become useless. As you all know, that in the case of Nigeria, since we are focusing more on Nigeria, we had series of growth, sometimes very high growth, sometimes weak. And in fact, we've experienced different recessions. But the question is, it's not just about how much we are producing. It's about what is the capacity of that production. How productive are we? We've had series of moments in this country where we have very high growth, 7, 8, 9, very high, interestingly. And at the same period, we've had massive unemployment, poverty at the same period. So it's not just about how much we are able to grow. It's about how many people are involved in the growing process, in the productive capacities. And the question will only be answered when we say how many people are willing, how many people are able, how many people have the skill, how many people are healthy enough to be part of this production process. And that boils down to the issue of human capital development. So this is not just another moment of academic gymnastics of trying to just show different relationship between this and that. I want us to look beyond this and see that the essence of every economic development is this. And indeed, at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, as you've rightly said, we prioritized human capital development as one of the core development goals. We've been involved with the Nigerian government at both the national and the state level in developing different policy strategies and development plans. For all the experiences we've gathered, we've identified that there is no way a nation can move forward without prioritizing the lives of its people. Different countries are experiencing the period of artificial intelligence, advancements in different technology. We cannot sit here as a nation or as a region and keep begging them to help us, just like some of our African leaders are doing now. We need to wake up, we need to work on ourselves and ask the fundamental question. And the question is, how do we compete globally when, as we've been told this morning, our Human Capital Development Index, and by the way, index, let's break it down. Human capital development in terms of our employment, in terms of our health, in terms of our skill. How do we compete globally? How do we improve our competitiveness when we are weak, regarding this major indicator? So it is our belief this morning, and indeed my hope, that different presenters will not only show us where we are, but also reveal to us the path to growth, what we need to do to move from where we are now and where we need to be, and what the government can do about it. So once again, on behalf of the management and the CEO and every member of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, I welcome you all again. I want to encourage us to make this to be more interactive. Let's ask questions. Let's criticize issues. Let's look at things from different perspectives. And at the end of the day, I hope that we'll be able to add value to the current debate around human capital development in Nigeria and indeed in Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Omik Shaki. When he said, let's criticize constructively. Let's also appreciate, and I would like you to jam your hands together for all of the 5 subject matter experts that have put their time and resources into putting these papers together that we're all going to be presented to and deliberate upon today. Please clap for them. Now I'm going to call on Dr. Tom Kimani to give us the opening remarks. But before I call on him, I'm going to read a bit about him, so we know who is opening this very important forum for us. Dr. Tom Kimani is lead manager training program at the African Economic Research Consortium, AERC, a public not-for-profit organization devoted to the advancements of economic policy research and training in sub-Saharan Africa. Dr. Kimani is responsible for the planning and management of training programs, as well as monitoring and evaluation of implementation of the AERC strategic plan. He's also in charge of the programmatic activities of the Collaborative Masters Program, CMAP, in economics, comprising 26 member universities in sub-Saharan Africa, and the Collaborative PhD Program, CPP, in economics, consisting of 8-degree awarding universities. Can we just clap for him? That's a lot. Well done. Prior to joining AERC in July 2012, Dr. Kimani was the founding dean of the School of Economics at Kenyatta University from 2008 to 2012, where under his leadership, a doctorate degree program in economics by coursework examination and thesis, as well as several unique bachelor's and master's degree programs in economics were developed, leading to rapid expansion of the school. He has taught several postgraduate courses and mentored several PhD students. Dr. Tom Kimani, the floor is yours. Please let's clap for him as he makes his way.
Good morning, everyone. Actually, it's my pleasure to be in Nigeria. This, I think, is my second time to be here. And I'm always happy. I'm always happy to come here. I mean, we hear a lot about Nigeria and quite good experience when we watch your movies and all that kind of a thing, Oga. We are happy. So I'm happy to be here representing AERC. And it's also my pleasure to be at the Nigerian Economic Summit and quite a good arrangement of this meeting. Most sincerely, thank you for organizing this dissemination workshop. And also we are very grateful because of our funders, that is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for making this be a success. So I don't know how many people know about AERC. Let me see. So anyway, I'll take you through very fast what AERC is all about, even as I talk about this project. So for AERC, we are more of capacity building. So we build capacity for economic policy in Africa. We know that for development to happen, you need to have well-trained economists. Economists will inform policy in a country. So that is what AERC does, more of through research and graduate training, and also in terms of policy outreach. What we are currently doing today in terms of dissemination is more of policy outreach. As she mentioned, we have our graduate training, which has the PhD program and the master's program. The PhD program in economics, where we have in Nigeria, we have the University of Ibadan, the University of Benin as part of our network. And through our training program, the CPP, we have been able to train 62 Nigerians out of 296. Those are our graduates. So at least we can say that we are happy that at least, of course, 62 in Nigeria is a small number, but in Africa, when we say we have trained 296 and 62 from Nigeria, for us, we feel it's big. So far, over the 3 decades, we have mentored through our training program, we have mentored over 4,700 master students and over 400 PhD graduates across the continent. Then we have what we call our research program. Our research program, we have what we call the thematic research and the collaborative research. And this project falls under the collaborative research. Now, in terms of the research program, the thematic research is more of capacity building for the early career researchers. This is where we mentor researchers to do research in economics, mentored by highly qualified, experienced resource persons. We normally have what we call a biannual research workshop, bringing together researchers from across Africa, but above all, we bring international resource persons to come and mentor our researchers. So it's more of peer review, where our researchers would present their papers, they get critique from their fellow researchers and from the resource persons, and that is how we are able to mentor them. And in this thematic research, we normally have 5 themes, and these themes cut across quite a lot of areas. The first theme is on poverty, labor market, and income distribution. The other one is macroeconomic policy and growth. The third one is finance and resource mobilization. The fourth one is production, trade, and economic integration. The fifth one is agriculture, climate change, and natural resource management. So if you look at all that diverse areas in terms of economics, if you are an economist, surely you don't have an excuse not to participate in our research program. We normally also have research skill capacity building through technical research workshops and visiting scholars program. That is visiting scholars program to the World Bank, to the IMF. So we have those kind of arrangements. In terms of the collaborative research, you notice that once we build capacity for our early career researchers, we always try to ask ourselves this question: so what? After they have been mentored, where else can they progress to? This is where now we talk about senior researchers collaborating with those in other continents to participate in the collaborative research program. It's more of the senior researchers undertaking research on topical policies issues that affect Africa. And we normally have 3 phases under the collaborative research, where we talk about framework research papers. And when we talk about the framework research papers, this will cover cross national regional studies. And this is where we try to understand the problem that we are researching on. Then we have what we are currently doing, the country case studies. Is our phase 2. Once we do the framework, we come to country case studies. What actually is being presented today is more of country case study on capacity, on the human capital development. So that's why we are having it in Nigeria. We'll see that we have done this in 7 other countries. And then phase 3 is what we call now the dissemination workshop. After they have undertaken their research, we need to disseminate so that we are able to impact policy. So far, AERC has undertaken quite a number of collaborative research research projects. Amongst them, we have inclusive finance in fragile and post-conflict states in Africa. We have exploring the impact of the war in Ukraine on low-income countries like Africa, healthcare financing and COVID in Africa, and several other collaborative research projects. So far, in terms of our alumni, where are they? So many senior economic advisors in African presidencies, some in the ministries of finance and planning, African central banks, think tanks, African universities, and quite so many other places where our alumni are. Now, please allow me to talk about the human capital project. So this is a project funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And what are the objectives of this project? The first objective is to generate evidence on the challenges of building human capital for accelerated inclusive development. The second objective is to address key constraints on human capital accumulation, such as weak public finance management and service delivery system. So in terms of the country case studies, AERC has undertaken quite a number of them, 7 in sub-Saharan Africa. That is Nigeria, where we are going to hear the presentation, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Burkina Faso, Senegal, and Madagascar. And the project fits our AERC strategic plan, the 2020-2025 themes, that is on improving quality in terms of research, and expanding influence in terms of the policy outcome of these research projects. So what are the expected outcomes out of this dissemination workshop? So the outcome here is we want to see increased awareness and understanding of human capital development in the country, to provide policy actors with a platform to discuss human capital development issues in the country, to identify policy gaps and windows of opportunities, as well as discuss strategies to accelerate Africa's economic growth through addressing human capital development constraints, to strengthen cooperation and networking among policy stakeholders on human capital, and crystallization of areas for further research in the human capital field and policy making. So please allow me to take this opportunity to thank the BMGF for supporting this project, and also to thank the Nigerian Summit, Economic Summit Group, for actually organizing this dissemination workshop. Without you, it would not have been possible. So we thank you most sincerely for this well-coordinated meeting. We also want to thank all the key stakeholders, all of you who have made this a success. You know, in the Bible, they talk about a rich man organizing a banquet and inviting people who never showed up, until he had to go and call the servants and tell them, go to the street and welcome them. But the Nigerian Economic Summit has welcomed you, and you have come, you have honored them. So give yourself a round of applause. So with these few remarks, I now declare this dissemination workshop officially open. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Dr. Kimani. Can we jam our hands together for him for that very informative welcome address? Without much ado, we are now going to go into the papers, and we have 5 researchers that are going to present to us in this in-country dissemination workshop. In no particular order, I'm going to be calling them the topics, and also maybe just do a bit of introduction of the researchers. I have research paper 1 by Shakiruddin Taiwo. The title is Foreign Investment and Human Capital Development in Nigeria, a firm-level analysis of manufacturing and ICT. In Nigeria, recent FDI inflows are becoming more sensitive to the characteristics of the country's labor force. In the past years, FDI inflows usually focus on the oil sector, resource-seeking activities which have resulted in little or zero gains for the country in terms of employment creation, capacity building for the existing workforce, and insignificant human capital gains. The direction of the new FDI inflows into Nigeria has resulted into divergent labor market outcomes. These investments favored technology enabling sectors such as ICT, education, health, and manufacturing, which have high propensities for knowledge transfers, boosting employment and employability. Please let's jam our hands together to welcome Shakiruddin Taiwo. All right, you're welcome. Please come. So I'm going to just give us highlights about each of the papers, and then call each researcher to present. Research paper 2 is by Mr. Wasiu A. Adekunle, also an economist with the NESG. And the title is Analyzing the Determinant of Healthcare Insurance Uptake in Nigeria. Analyzing the Determinant of Healthcare Insurance Uptake in Nigeria by Wasiu A. Adekunle. And it mentions that health insurance coverage in Nigeria has historically been low, with less than 5% of Nigeria's over 200 million people being covered by health insurance. This suggests that low uptake of health insurance in Nigeria as financing healthcare through public and private health insurance schemes account for about 1.9% of the total current health spending in the country. Right. This is quite insignificant relative to the average shares of 26% and 18% in high income and upper middle income countries. Respectively, in 2021, the National Health Insurance Authority NHIA Act was introduced, making health insurance mandatory for all citizens. However, using compulsion alone to increase the uptake of healthcare insurance might not guarantee the expected outcome. Please join me to welcome Mr. Wasiu A. Adekunle. You're very welcome and well done. The third paper is by Yelwa Muhammad and Sarah O. Anyang. And the paper covers child development and family human capital investment decisions in Nigeria, a study of selected states in the 6 geopolitical zones. And we have Nigeria's economic growth and productivity depend on development of human capital. However, the country's human capital development is still low, particularly among low-income rural families who lack the means to invest in their children's futures. The lack of resource endowment in most households and cultural prejudices against girls are two main factors contributing to inadequate human capital development in Nigeria. Family size and per capita income also influence decisions about investing in human capital. Please join me to welcome Mr. Yelwa Muhammad, Professor Yelwa Muhammad, and Professor Sarah Anyang. Okay, Professor Sarah is not here. Right. And I have paper 4 as the differential impact of COVID-19 pandemic on education in Nigeria as a title. Implications for policy review by Mr. Kehinde Oluwaseun, Mrs. Dr. Kehinde Oluwaseun, National Center for Technology Management, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Ololade G. Adewale and Taiwo F. Badigeshi. A round of applause for them. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, the country's education sector was considered fragile and fraught with unequal access to schooling and learning experiences. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 pandemic lockdown only exacerbated the problems of high rates of school absenteeism, dropout, and out-of-school children, which were relatively high before the pandemic. The switch to digital tools and equipment for teaching and learning was without challenges, including poor internet connectivity, a full subscription to Zoom, not budgeted, and power failure, among others. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Oluwaseun Omotosho. You're very welcome, madam. And last but not the least, I have the 5th paper titled The Determinants of Participation in Large-Scale School Programs in Nigeria by Musliu Adeolu Adewale, Department of Economics, School of Management Technology, Federal University of Technology, Akure, Ondo State, Nigeria. North-South disparities in school participation persist in Nigeria despite implementing 2 large-scale school expansion programs. Areas with complex pre-colonial government structures seemingly record higher school enrollment in Nigeria, while those with heavy investment in Quranic education report otherwise. However, areas with more complex pre-colonial government structures report poorer school enrollment when they have invested more in Quranic education. To this end, there is evidence of a mismatch between modern economic demands and skills processed by learners. You're very welcome. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Musuliu Adeolu Adewale. You're welcome, sir. Now we have 5 of these researchers with us. And in no particular order, we will have paper 1 being discussed at first, and then follow on paper 2, paper 3, paper 4, and paper 5 while they're seated here. After each person finishes the presentation, you go back, and then we'll call the second person until we get to the 5th speaker. And then afterwards, we'll take questions and answers from the audience and from the virtual participants. Is that a plan? Does it work? Good. Please join me once again in welcoming Mr. Sadiq Olofin, represented by Mr. Shakuruddin. All right, you're welcome. Please, let's clap for him. I did say you should speak here. All right.
Thank you very much. So like it was said, I'll be representing Mr. Shaks, but it's an NESG affairs. Well, before we proceed, I believe Madam Morris have been able to give us a very good, as he was doing the brief introduction, I was just looking at my slide. I guess this is not my slide that you are reading from. Anyways, thank you very much. I'm Sadiq Olofin. Okay, thank you. So the topic I'll be presenting on is, sorry, I don't think I'll get this. So the topic I'll be presenting on is foreign direct investment and human capital development in Nigeria, a firm level analysis of the manufacturing and ICT industry. So we broke the presentation into about 4 different sections. We have the introductory section, we have our, we have the methodology section, and we have the policy, we have the findings and policy recommendations. So I'll start with the introduction. So in Africa, with many of the African countries having very low technological advancements, skill accumulation, and human capital stock, we found that the FDI has been a major source of technology and technical managerial know for many of the developing countries like Nigeria. And given the nature of FDI, many of the multinational companies, they have knowledge stock in terms of patents of free technology, trademarks, and experienced workforce, among other advantages that they could deploy in to exploration. So given this kind of opportunity advance, they come into developing countries in the form of FDI. They bring in the FDI to those countries, and it constitutes a major of their capital development, which is used to propel technological progress and economic growth in these countries. So based on the review of the literature, we found divergent findings across the categorizations. It is absolutely obvious from the literature based on popular opinion that foreign portfolio investment has significant impact on whatever the creation of human will be. So in this case, to employment capital, we found that portfolio invest significant, that is, they don't impact employment in developing countries, they have no impact on capital for those developing countries. So we then went further to look at FDI as the major discussion of our paper. We broke it down into the different kind of FDI that we have, which where am I to point this? And someone help me to go back before this one. So based on those different categorizations that we have 5 different categorization of FDIs. We have the merger and acquisition. We have greenfield investment. We have a resource-seeking FDI. And it has been proven from popular opinion in the literature the previous one, please. Where we have table, please. Yes, exactly. So from this slide, we're able to summarize what the literature is saying about FDI and human capital development. So we found that in the literature, merger and acquisition has low to moderate impact on employment in developing countries, while in terms of human capital development, the impact is low. On greenfield investments, we found it to have high impact on to developing countries. It leads to increasing production, increasing employment, and higher demand for employees. So the impact is high for employment at the same time for human capital development. In terms of resource seeking, popular opinion is that the impact of resource seeking is low for developing countries in terms relative to employment, and is also low for human capital development. Also, market seeking has a high impact on employment and has a high impact on human capital development. And lastly, we have the efficiency seeking, which has moderate to high impact on employment and moderate to high impact on human capital. So this gives the summary of what the literature is saying around FDI and human capital development. So we then bring the narrative down to Nigeria. This is around developing countries. In Nigeria, the situation around FDI is that FDI inflow revolves around resource-seeking investment that is focused on mineral resources, especially dominated by the oil and gas sector. But the recent development is showing that the situation is diverging, given the problem we have in our oil and gas sector. So the situation is diverging in favor of the manufacturing sector, in favor of ICT, and in favor of technology. As a result, which is then having impact on the human capital development, employment, and the other variables that affect the labor force. So on this basis, we feel it is important for us to look into the potential relationship that could exist between FDI and human capital development and various other variables that are of interest. Therefore, we have the objective to identify the dimensions and nature of, I struggle a bit with the screen. So identify and maybe a bit of tilting to this side. So to identify and dimension the nature of impact of FDI and their types on skill development and economic prospect of workers in the manufacturing sector. Okay, maybe that will work. Okay, a bit better. So, and the second objective is to determine the country's specific need of FDI to have significant impact on human capital development in Nigeria. So these are the objectives that we set out to achieve in the study. So the methodology adopted, we adopted a quantitative and qualitative methodology in the process of delivering this study. The quantitative methodology involves, the quantitative approach involves administering questionnaire using a face-to-face method, meeting some already highlighted manufacturing and ICT companies in Nigeria that have received FDI over the past 5 to 10 years. We accumulated them over that period based on their responses, and then we subject their responses to a panel analysis. So also we did a desk review to bring together some of the secondary data that we have to distill insight from what could be the relationship between foreign direct investment and human capital development in Nigeria. So we proceed to the findings. So we found that FDI inflow indeed impact human capital development in Nigeria. However, the nature of impact is dependent on the kind of FDI, and it depends on the sector we are considering. So we went forward. Further finding reveals that except for the merger and acquisition, all other type of FDI impact human capital development. But okay, so efficiency seeking FDI has been the most important FDI for human capital development in Nigeria. However, we on the basis of our analysis, we did a composite analysis where we brought all the categorization of FDI together and excuse me, all the categorization of FDIs together. So we have human capital, which reveals that efficiency seeking FDI positively impacts human capital development across all sectors of the economy, while the relationship varies across other types of FDI. Also, we found that M&A does not impact human capital development across all the sectors and across all the measures of human capital. So breaking it, decomposing our human capital to different measures, which we use the skills development, income, and talent development. We found that resource-seeking FDI is the only type of FDI that impacts skills, that impacts income, and impact talent development in the ICT sector. Meanwhile, in the manufacturing sector, we found that efficiency-seeking FDI impacts skills development, while on the other side, we have efficiency-seeking FDI, market-seeking, and resource-seeking FDI impacting talent development. But then none of the type of FDI that we consider impact income structure in the manufacturing sector. But the major thing that then, as part of our control variables, we considered the role of regulatory factors, and the most important one for us there is the incentive from government. We find that incentive is a major drawback for FDI into Nigeria, and is a major reason why FDI is not impacting human capital development in Nigeria. So next we go to our policy recommendations, So the recommendation basically revolve around the regulatory environment. The government needs to do a lot in the regulatory environment, general ease of doing business, and incentive management for MNEs. But the specific recommendations are to invest in education and training, collaborate with investors to develop training centers and talent development programs, to invest in research and development, to develop industrial partnership framework for knowledge transfer between foreign firms and domestic firms, liberalize local content, as we have it, is about 80% local content for multinational companies in Nigeria now. So we advise that they liberalize it for the MNEs to be able to bring in more professional hands that can then transfer skills to Nigerian employees. And lastly, we advise that the government institute a favorable competitive business environment where we support businesses with good policies and then with good incentive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sadiq Olofin. I have the second paper to be presented by Mr. Wasiu Adekunle on analyzing the determinants of healthcare insurance uptake in Nigeria. You have 10 minutes, sir.
Good morning once again. Just like I've been introduced, my name is Wasiu Adekunle. So I'll be presenting on the topic, analyzing the determinants of healthcare insurance uptake in Nigeria. Yeah, so. Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay. Okay, just like the introduction was made by the moderator, that it's no news that health insurance coverage is very low in Nigeria. According to the Nigerian DHS, there's a demographic and health survey. It puts the estimate at 3.4%. Just 3.4% of over 200 million Nigerians are covered by either private or public health insurance in Nigeria. So, but when you look at the graph there, you find out that just 14 states have outperformed the national average of 3.4%, implying that there is little or no progress made in a number of states in Nigeria. So, and that suggests low uptake of health insurance in Nigeria due to some common factors established in the literature, as including the literacy rates, in terms of exposure to mass media, in terms of employment, what kind of jobs you do, in terms of age, wealth, and all that, all of those. So, so consequently, okay, Nigerians have had to cope by resorting to high out-of-pocket spending. Okay, thank you. So given the low uptake, so given low uptake and low public spending, okay, Nigerians have had to cope with high and catastrophic pocket spending. At least over 70% of current health spending is paid out of pocket. So, and this we know and is established in the literature has high on-prevention effects. But in 2021, the NHIE, the National Health Insurance Act, was enacted, making health insurance more mandatory, because the NHIS, which was introduced in 2005, was made voluntary. Membership was voluntary, enrollment was voluntary, and only captured the formal sector. And in fact, the initiative was more driven at the federal level. Most of the states have not keyed into this initiative. So, but what we note about this new NHI is that using compulsion alone cannot guarantee the expected result of enhancing the coverage rates and even enrollment into health insurance. So we now believe the fact that further clarity is required to identify factors that could drive this uptick. So I mean the socioeconomic factors with this particular paper pursued. So understanding this would also help us come up with strategies to improve and accelerate health insurance uptake in Nigeria going forward. So in terms of methodology, so in terms of methodology, so this particular study was built on the theory of second best coverage. And as you see, the equation there is not so it's just fancy, but I can explain. So the C part there is talking about the co-insurance payments made by individuals to service providers. So Y minus C there is talking about the degree of coverage. And that is talking about the fact that this degree of coverage depends on two factors, basically the health demand elasticity, how people respond, how people demand for health, the sensitivity of health demand, okay, with respect to the costs of accessing health care, and also the discrepancy in the value that people attach to healthy states and ill health. So it is believed here from equation that people attach, given the fact that normally we are averse to risks, so we more adore more, we more put more weight and value on sick states, because we know if we are sick, we have to pay more out of pocket. We suffer a diminution in wealth and income. So that is even an incentive to want to enroll in health insurance, just to protect and ensure against health-induced financial shocks and risks. So, but that's the theoretical underpinning. But from the survey of the literature, okay, so we went parallel with that to identify 6 factors which could be responsible in driving health insurance uptake in Nigeria. So the first one is employment status. Second one is financial inclusion, educational status, age of the household health. We also looked at income class, high income, middle income, and low income groups. We also looked at problems people face in accessing healthcare, such as distance, lack of funds, and even when people suffering from disabilities. So this particular study relied on the 2018 DHS. Okay, so covering 37 states, including the FCT, but given the fact that we couldn't get data for Katsina, so we had to limit our scope to 36 states, including the FCT. So we employed descriptive and regression analysis, in which we have 3 specifications. So, you know, we have 3 kind of models we estimated. We have one for the overall health demand, and we have for the types, the private, those enrolled for private health insurance, those that enrolled into private health insurance, and those that enrolled in public health insurance. And also in estimating the model, we adopted the ordinary least squares technique. So in terms of findings, we found out that having access to employment opportunities, availability of employment opportunity drives health insurance uptake. Yes, the person. Okay. Okay, so just like the scatter graph has shown, there is a positive relationship between having chances of employment opportunity and also the uptake of public and private health insurance in Nigeria. So, and that's a fact, because, you know, when you get employed, and in fact, when it's a job that guarantees some level of social protection, so you are enrolled into a HMO. We have HMOs for private individuals working in companies, and we have NHIS publicly that is being used in public sector. So when you have that employment opportunity, you have the opportunity to have the chance of being enrolled into health insurance. So we also have the other factor also from the scatter graph, showing the fact that when you are financially included, you are part of the financial system, you have access and you make use of financial products, you also have higher chances of being enrolled, of enrolling into health insurance in Nigeria. So thirdly, is that due to financial constraint, low-income households okay. Oh, no. No. Okay, so due to financial constraints, low-income households have the challenge. Okay, so let me just, I can just speak on the top of my head. So due to, okay, so due to financial constraint, low-income households have lower chances of enrollment due to poverty and all that, compared to high-income and middle-income households. So we also consider some other factors which, however, didn't follow their prior expectations. One is we looked at education. Education is supposed to drive enrollment positively as it creates awareness and all that. But we know that in the climate, there's unfavorable labor market conditions like high level of informality. We have a high level of informal sector with no guarantee of social protection. So despite how we have quality education, people that you have graduates, they are unemployed. So all these labor market, unfavorable labor market conditions could rob off the opportunity to enroll into health insurance. So we also looked at the old age. So old age, as you age and you retire from active service, you're supposed to leverage health insurance to seek health care and all that. But we found that this is negative. So, but what we looked at is that maybe health insurance is not much a priority, just like the contribute pension. Okay, that is that's more a lifelong priority to everybody. So the last factor we looked at is, and we found out, was that the problems accessing healthcare, okay, such as lack of funds, such as distance from health care centers, such as disabilities, also disincentivize people from enrollment, because the demand for health insurance is a derived demand. You don't derive for health insurance just for its own sake, but for you to seek health care at affordable cost and affordable rates. So in terms of policy recommendations, we recommend that initiatives that engender improved financial inclusion should also facilitate or could facilitate higher uptake of health insurance, given the positive relationship between two variables. Secondly, is that we propose that a certain number of educated elites should be marked with different jobs that guarantees adequate social protection. So third is that we need to ameliorate the barriers to healthcare, such as subsidizing the cost of healthcare, such as also protecting the vulnerable. Okay, when we talk about the vulnerable groups, we're talking about the young children, we're talking about the disabilities, the prison inmates, the aged, the retirees, and all that. So they should protect it, and there should be an adequate social protection for them. And lastly is that the lifelong enrollment into health insurance should create incentives. Okay, there should be incentives such as broadening the scope of health insurance, because when you ask people, why are you not enrolled? They will ask you, okay, what does it cover? Does it cover this? Does it cover that? So we need to broaden it to incentivize people to enroll into health insurance. Thank you very much.
Please, let's clap for him. Let's clap for him. Thank you for the efforts. I now have for paper 3, Professor Yelwa Mohammed on child development and family human capital investment decisions in Nigeria, a study of selected states in the 6 geopolitical zones.
Thank you very much, the moderator, my colleagues from Africa Economic Research Consortium, Dr. Tom, dear participants. My name is Professor Mohammed Yelwa from University of Abuja. The paper is co-authored with Professor Sarah Anyang, too, from University of Abuja. The paper is titled Child Development and Family Human Capital Investment Decision. We look at cases of 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria. It has gone through so many processes, and we're happy to see that we're in the Nigerian Economic Summit Group today to disseminate the result output. Fundamentally, we look at some key issues underpinning child development in Africa, specifically in Nigeria. You look at the cases of family rivalry. Those are the issues we look at. Also look at resource endowment, per capita income and family size, and the issue of religious and cultural prejudice underpinning girls' child education in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. This, of course, what formed the basis and the thrust of this paper. On our own, we try to define child development as physical and genetical and psychological and emotional stages that occurs in human beings. These are the process we feel that before you come up as an adult, we'll undergo through all this process. We look at also the work of Lawrence in 2022, who defined child development as the growth of perceptual, emotional, intellectual, and behavioral capabilities and functioning during the childhood and to adolescence. And we have made mention a lot of human capital development is key, is significant for economic growth and development, FDI, that's foreign direct investments as well. All these things are key factors for economic growth and productivity. Depends on the development of human capital. Despite this idealistic look, we look at it that government programs such as National Directors of Employment, Industrial Training Fund, Nigerian Human Capital Development is still at an all-time low. That particularly among the rural families or rural communities in Nigeria who lack the resources or endowment to enhance the educational prowess of their children. Is it correct? Okay. Then the economic growth and product depends on the human capital. Despite this idealistic look, looking at the programs of government vis-a-vis NDE and ITE, that human capital development in developing nations still are under represented. We look at highlighted this, the issue of lack of resource endowment, the disparity among income, among families, particularly in rural areas, who cannot even ascertain their per capita income, that is income per head, the issue of cultural and religious prejudice among guest charge, that the moment they attain the age of 17, 18, particularly in rural communities in northern Nigeria, they were compared to get married. These are the things that generate the issue of income disparity because they don't have access to quality education. They cannot compete at this franchise. Family size, you notice that many people have 4 wives, 18 children, 20 children. The issue of rivalry among families, which one do have to cater for first? So these are the issues also we look at among siblings rivalry. In terms of methodology, we use both quantitative and qualitative methods while doing this work. And we gathered our data primarily from National Bureau of Statistics using 2018-2019, what was it called? Nigeria Living Standard, excluding Borno State. Borno State is excluded because of the inherent insecurity challenges on facing in that state. The qualitative analysis was sourced through the administration of questionnaires and using banal logistic regression techniques. The case study design was used to explain the information gathering, formulation, and primary data collection procedure. What we did, we choose Bauchi State from Northeast. We choose Kano from Northwest, and we also choose Ogun from Southwest. And in the South-South, we choose Port Harcourt, that is River State. And the Southeast, we also choose Anambra State. So, and we initially we wanted to choose, we chose two states from each geopolitical zone, but because of the largeness of state and the time frame given to us by AERC, we may not be able to cover. So in the process of defending the concept note, we are asked to drop one state so that we choose one state from each geopolitical zones. And by doing so, we choose one rural area, one municipal from, and we administered our questionnaire. We source, and that was what we did. And we analyzed our data using banal logistic regressions. Our findings from logistic regression, that is the primary data. The family perception on the cost of education shows a significant inverse relationship with the log of family human capital investment decision. That the issue of the household size shows no significant impact on human capital investment decision. And dependency ratio show an inverse significant relationship with the log of family human capital investment decision. And the area of literacy level shows direct significant relationship with the family human capital investment decision. The issue of proximity to school also is inconsequential in terms of human capital investment decision. Multidimensional poverty index was found to be having significant negative impact on family human capital investment decision. Is it changing? Okay. This is the result from the secondary data, the data we collected from NBS National Bureau of Statistics. One, the total employed person also have a significant, a household has a significant positive effect on human capital investment decision, because we look at household per each family. Male perception of the cost of education was found to have a positive significant impact on the log of family human capital investment decision. The age of the household head is found to have a not significant effect because it's inconsequential. Education level of the household has a significant negative impact on family human capital investment. Occupation too of the household head and place of residence has also not have impact on the family human capital investment decision. Years of business or paid employment has positive impact on family human capital investment decision. This is your, okay. Recommendations. We come up with the following recommendations. And family especially, it is fluctuating. Okay. It's okay. Okay. Especially policy recommendations. Family, especially parents should maintain justice and fairness within the home. Family planning and birth control campaigns be intensified by government agencies and hospitals, especially in rural dwellings, to help reduce household size, because where we see large number of children who have access to this, who have access to that, it happens a lot. And so many have been challenged, they don't have access to education. Children from poor homes should have access to scholarship, free educational materials, grants, scholarships. In fact, we have mentioned this in our policy briefs. Government and its agencies on education should intensify sensitization and campaign for families to embrace formal education, especially in the northern region. This was what this thing happens most in the process of our research. Promote compulsory primary basic education for all the children, to prosecute parents of out-of-school children or child labor to serve as a deterrent to many others. NGOs, religious organizations, and judiciary should appeal on moral ground to couple to avoid act of action that will necessitate divorce for the well-being of human capital development of their worlds. Are you changing for me? Is that is the end? Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much, Prof. So before the next two papers, I think we should, we've been asked to break for tea. So it's time for tea break. You can please rise up, tea and some snacks outside, I understand. Yes. We're about to go into the fourth and the fifth paper. I have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Kendi Oluwaseun of the National Center for Technology Management, and she'll be presenting paper 4, the differential impact of COVID-19 pandemic on education in Nigeria. Please, let's join our hands together to welcome her. Implications for policy review. Madam, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you, the moderator, for the short introduction. So slide, please. So I'll be presenting on the differential impact of COVID-19 pandemic on education in Nigeria, looking at the implications for policy review. Yeah, you would agree with me that education sector was one of the sectors that was badly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and its associated challenges and measures to curb the spread of the virus. So the measures to curb the spread of COVID-19 virus affected the Nigerian education system, which has been fragile and inequitable across socio-demographic lines. Prior to the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic, the educational sector in the country was already suffering from inequity in terms of access, enrollment, and attendance. Between 2020 and 2022, Nigeria has the highest rate of out-of-school children. So we can see that the pandemic really hit the economy hard in terms of our educational sector, and not just the educational sector, all the associated or related, system or sector around the educational sector. So the prevention measures during the COVID-19 pandemic serve the condition of national experiment for us to evaluate the impact of the school closure or the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on education in Nigeria. So we use natural experiment design to provide an empirical evidence on the differential impact. We were looking at different aspects of impact of the COVID-19 lockdown order on learning and the adoption of digital learning outcome platforms across key socio-demographic factors or lines in Nigeria. We complemented this with a thematic qualitative approach, which looked at the contextual issues of factors such as mixed learning opportunities for students or pupils, the loss of access to vital school provided services, the health and nutrition, social protection and social safety nets in terms of the homegrown school feeding initiatives and programs, access to and uptake of ICT-based resources, which influence learning outcomes during this period. So in terms of our methodology, we adopted a mixed method approach. That is, we use both the qualitative and the quantitative data collection and techniques in carrying out this research. More specifically, we adopted a quant-qual approach. What this means is that we look at our secondary data, we analyze it, then based on some of the findings, on some of the things we found, we went to the field to complement these findings from focus group discussions and opinions and perspectives from people that were really affected during the COVID-19, especially the key stakeholders in the educational sector. I mean, the pupils, the students, the governments, the regulatory authorities, and all other pertinent stakeholders within that sector. So primary data was collected in 3 geopolitical zones through semi-structured in-depth interviews, IDIS, and focus group discussions, FGDs. And we did this in compliance with COVID-19 protocols because we actually collected those data when the pandemic was hitting hard. So the data were analyzed using a thematic content analysis with a computer-aided qualitative data at last TI. Then the secondary data was drawn from the Nigeria's General Household Survey, panel 2018-2019, and the Nigeria COVID-19 National Longitudinal Phone Surveys using a number of regression models and a DID estimation technique to see if we could identify a short-term, cause-effect relationship of the school closure on the adoption of digital learning platforms in the schools. So our key research findings is summarized there. We all know that COVID-19 has exacerbated some of the pre-existing inequalities in our educational sector in terms of the rural-urban divide, the social class divide, the gender divide, and all that. So the lockdown increased the probability of using. What we find out is on the positive side, the lockdown was a game changer in terms of people accessing digital tools and devices, to teach, to learn, and to adapt. And it was a kind of resilience during that period to access learning materials. In 2020 compared to 2018, people began to see the need to go digital. And this is very encouraging, given that even now we know that AI has come to stay. So people, it has come to stay. People already now have an idea, okay, this is how I can access this online. The ChatGPT, most of us are conversant with all this. People now have the knowledge of technology as opposed to 2018 or previous years. However, there was generally low access to digital tools for learning by those affected by the lockdown-induced shock. What this means is that, people were willing, the probability was high for people to adopt technology, to adopt digital learning tools. But on a general note, the access was low because people were not prepared for it. And there was lockdown, there was no way some people could buy and things that, all other factors contributed to it. But overall, the access, the willingness and the probability of students to use digital tools increased significantly during this period, which is a positive result for Nigeria, even as we embrace the artificial intelligence that has come to stay. So younger children had more access to learning digitally than their older counterparts. We discovered that children in the primary school going age were more likely to use those resources the digital resources than those undergraduates or those in the university during that period. That was what we discovered from our data, from the secondary data. Then the probability of accessing digital learning tools is higher for males than for females. We discovered that gender digital divide was there. We still have it, more males were having access. That was what the data told us. Then the likelihood of digital learning tools being adopted is higher in the Southwest, in the South and Northwest, and lesser in some other regions, based on the data and our findings. There were also variations in the results across location, across age group, education levels, and gender. The results, the findings from our qualitative analysis was very striking and interesting. The finding indicated that gender, social class, school ownership, ethnicity, and political jurisdiction are significant social markers of the differential impact of COVID-19 on learning. We interviewed quite a lot of stakeholders. We interviewed schools, public, private. We interviewed teachers. We interviewed parents. We interviewed the pupils. We interviewed government bodies that regulate the educational sector. So we got a whole lot of information, perspectives that we couldn't get with our secondary data. Some of you will agree with me, secondary data has its own limitation because we are limited to the information provided. So we saw this variation in terms of gender, social class, school ownership, ethnicity, and political aspect. The lockdown enhanced ICT use for learning and resilience, that was clear. The public-private school disparity in terms of connectivity, in terms of access to these digital devices, in terms of their use and adaptation, in terms of internet and the virtual learning environment, during the lockdown explains the learning setback among students. You know, the student really opened up. Some of them couldn't learn because they don't have those digital tools to use. They really wanted to learn, but they don't have. The school could not provide. The government could not provide palliatives to maybe in form of cash transfer or subsidy to purchase this equipment. So many private and public schools in primary and secondary use ICT for learning via online and radio programs. That was one of the key means of transmission of learning then. It was through radio, through television broadcast and all that. But the majority of public university undergraduates were disadvantaged, as I've stated earlier. Most of them did not have access. We discovered that this complemented, actually triangulated some of the results we find with quantitative analysis. The undergraduates were disadvantaged compared to those in lower educational cadres or classes, like the primary school students and all that. So education then became a matter of privilege and not right, because they were excluded because of certain socioeconomic factors. Forced marriages, loss of interest in education, and dropout were most common among female students, especially in the northern part of Nigeria. That was some of our findings. Some of the female students got discouraged. Yeah, thank you. They got discouraged. They were forced to marry, and they lost interest permanently in education. So that means the implication of this is that the rate of out-of-school children in Nigeria now has increased from what it used to be because of these issues. Okay, so going to the recommendation, it is very important and imperative that our government, in conjunction with the private sector and relevant stakeholders such as philanthropists, the alumni organization and others, in the education sector should improve the provision of e-learning platform devices. We can't leave this to school alone, to the government alone, or to the school authorities. We need to collaborate with the private sector. We need to leverage on some of their training facilities, their innovation, for us to improve in delivering digital tools in our schools. Then reducing inequality in access to digital technologies at all levels of school to remain a major policy priority among policymakers and personal stakeholders. Yeah, it's very clear now that this issue has exacerbated inequality even at the household level and across board. So it is equally important to build capacity for healing and digital technology in schools while adopting a proactive approach to preparedness and response to national crisis across all the educational levels. I think let me just dwell a bit about this. We have to be proactive and not reactive. And when I'm talking, I'm not just talking to the government, I'm talking to all stakeholders in the educational sector. You know, the emphasis tends to be on the government. The government should do this. I mean, the school should be proactive. The government should be proactive in form of their policy to be more inclusive, to be sustainable and impactful, and to drive those policies to make sure they are well implemented and monitored, as opposed to reactive when situation occurs, right? Like when there's a shock, a negative shock of course, like COVID-19 is a negative shock. So we have to be proactive in our thinking. We have to be forward thinking. We don't have to wait till there is a problem or pandemic. We just have to be practical about this. Then the unequal treatment and accessibility to digital devices or technologies during the COVID-19 has also highlighted the need for social justice and more inclusive educational practices across the country's geopolitical zone. These are things we find out. We see this intergenerational mobility of poverty. We see it come up again and again, like the issue of inequality between households. So what we find out is this: government need to take proactive steps with the relevant stakeholders to reduce the level of inequality in the country. Because we discovered that well-to-do family, they have access, their children could access education, while the poor households, their children could not access because they don't have the resources. The palliatives did not get to them. Most of them complain, we don't even see palliative, we don't see any cash transfer to buy these resources. So government needs to do something to further bridge this gap and not widen it. Thank you. Thank you.
I was going to say that I'll start minusing if you continue talking. Thank you very much. Let's join our hands together once more for that very passionate presentation by Dr. Kehinde Oluwaseun Omotosho. Now we have the fifth paper on determinants of participation in large-scale school programs in Nigeria by Musuliu Adeolu Adewale of the Department of Economics, School of Management, Technology, Federal University of Technology, Akure. You're very welcome, sir. So let me tell you the trick about this clicker. It takes 7 seconds to move. No, I'm not joking, no, I'm serious. So don't do it twice. Once you want to go to the next, just click once and then you wait 7 seconds.
Okay, thank you. My name is there, the departments and my school. The initial title of this work was Determinants of Participation in Large-Scale School Expansion Program. But at the very first meeting in Kenya, the resource persons felt that there should be a more focused approach. And the original intention was that if education was free and made free all over the country in 1976, and then again in 1999, why is it that the data is not picking up the fact that a large number of people that should have participated actually enrolled for school? That was the concern, because the idea of just throwing money at any problems should beg the question. There are things we need to understand. So that was the original motivation, and that's the reason why that title was. So after that meeting, we were asked to narrow down, and that's why the presentation today has a slightly different title. Okay. So, and that's why it has pre-colonial centralization, Quranic education, and school participation in Nigeria. And the of Nigeria, or history of the group, several groups in Nigeria. We had different kind of pre-colonial experiences. We have different kind of government, different kind of culture, different kind of structure. And it was important that we understand whether some of the things we see today is connected to who we were and some of the experiences that happened about that time. The idea of pre-colonial centralization derived from the fact that a number of studies before now have shown that our societies with very strong governmental structure tend to report higher developmental outcomes today. So the puzzle now arose in Nigeria. If you look at the northwest and the northeast of Nigeria, they used to have big empires, the Borno Empire, the Sokoto Caliphate, and all of that. So, and then we were asking, why is it that participation in school was that low? Why is it that it is high in Benin, in current Yoruba land, where we have the Oyo Empire, and then you have the Benin Kingdom? And then why is it that in among the southeastern states, among the southeasterners that have what you call the acephalous society without state structure, why is it that they have better school participation outcomes? And so that exactly was the issue we had to address. And in order to address that, we went back to what other kind of experience did we have as two different regions that probably caused a break between that kind of experience. And if you look at the north, they had more contact with Arab traders that were coming in to relate with them. And as they came, they also brought Quranic education alongside with them, and it spread rapidly down the line for about 600 years before any other thing started to happen, before the missionaries started to come into Nigeria. So if we look at that was the question that we're trying to address. What's the puzzle? Why is there still any strict, strong relationship between the extent of governmental capacity before the colonial masters came and what you have as current school enrollment? Why is it that it is strong for Southwest and Edo and Delta part of Nigeria, and then it is the other way for Northwest and the Northeast? And then what part could that religious experience actually be playing? Because the contact was very sustained between the Arab traders that were coming to the north through the Bono Empire and then spreading towards this, what you call the current Northwest. Did it play actually a role? That was one, and all of our objectives were revolved around that. We're looking at the relationship between pre-colonial states and all of that. So in terms of methodology, we exploit the fact that contemporary Nigerian societies or layers of government at the level of the local government were once under different pre-colonial state structures. Some had very strong, some had very weak. Now we have the same national institution. And then what is the role that Quranic education actually played in that? So, and we use just basic OLS because we're just looking for correlations, although there are follow-up studies to use something much more than that. So we control for a number of historical and contemporary variables. Sorry, my slide has to be very short in order to eliminate several things. We did a lot of sample selection bias. We tried to eliminate the fact that some observations might be driving our result. We look at whether there are observations or variables that we could have control for, but we don't have data on them, and whether those are very important in explaining our results. Okay, so, sorry. So what do we find out? One, we found out that state capacity represented by that state centralization still matter. Societies or areas that had very strong government structure still have high school enrollment today. The rates are pretty high I gave the percentage. Whether you are looking at either the UP, those who are supposed to participate in the UP program, or those who are supposed to participate in the UB program, which is still currently ongoing. We found that, yes, having a state structure matters a lot. So state capacity is very important. Then we found that those who have high level of investment in religious education, and how did we proxy that? We calculated the number of people born between 1914 and 1946 who report having Quranic education across the 774 local governments of Nigeria. And we found that the impact and participation is still very, very, very strong. We can see that it has very high percentage. After we've done all the controls, we arrive at, it reduces participation by about 14% for the UP and about 12.7% for the UB. Finally, the impact of state centralization on school enrollment tends to be negative in areas where they have also invested heavily. In other words, later investment in Quranic education reverse the opportunity that centralized states like that are located in the Northwest and the Northeast would have had. And it is still very, very prevalent in the literature. So we found that the later investment in religious education is causing the reversal that we are finding today, especially for these two regions. So what did we recommend that we can do? the last slide. So the recommendation, one, state capacity matters. I mean, it takes a lot of time to develop the capacity to build a state. Capacity is not just even required for education service delivery alone. It's required for a whole lot of activity. And I think that a point will come in our nation that will need that. Of course, because government has to raise tax revenue, is also finding out that building state capacity matters. So it matters for a whole lot of things apart from the fact that we need that to boost our participation level. But the more important one, which can now be addressed, is the need to actually integrate Quranic education into our conventional educational system. Part of that is ongoing. I know that there are selected schools in the north that are trying to bring in Quranic education so that they can persuade as many people to come, because the perception is still that, oh, Western values will be taught, and so people would go away from traditional things that they believe in, and so on and so forth. So there is a need to intensify effort, and I think they've done quite a lot of that in Pakistan. Pakistan have established some of what you call these madrasa schools, and the madrasa schools is an attempt to bring in Quranic education into mainstream education system so that you can get everybody to report and be part of the formal school system. So that is just in short what this work is about. Thank you.
Please let's jam our hands together once more for that very academic but insightful session by Mr. Musuliu Adeolu Adewole. Now we're going into the question and answers, and just as I called the researchers earlier, please, you're expected to be up stage here to address questions and answers. So again, in no particular order, I call paper one first, Mr. Sadiq Olofin, Economics NESG, Mr. Wasiu A. Adekunle, Economics NESG, Professor Yelwa Mohammed, Department of Economics, University of Abuja, Dr. Kehinde Oluwaseun-Omotosho, National Center for Technology Management, and Mr. Musuliu Adeolu Adewole, Department of Economics, Futa, Akure, Ondo State. My role is simple, is to moderate, so you don't get to ask me the technical questions. So, and they're all here. You've heard all of their papers. The presentation, very important topics to our in-country dissemination workshop on human capital development in Africa, case study Nigeria. So questions, madam, you've indicated? Okay, nice. If you prefer that one particular person addresses your question, please indicate. Otherwise, you can throw it open and we can select who would.
Thank you very much. Once again, my name is Ronke Kusoko, CEO Employment Clinic, and from the name of the company that we are Lindsay Human Capital Development. Mr. Olofin addressed the issue that made me attend this program, that there is no correlation between investment into the country and human capital development. And that has been a challenge. Nigeria says we are attracting FDI, but you find out that most of these companies, because I'm doing a job now that involves about 90 companies actually, and we're very careful talking about the human capital, because somebody had to call me in charge of HR that I even had graduates earning 38,000. And I can tell you in that place, they can do that job for the next 10 years, and those companies are not going to invest a kobo on them, because even if they try to complain, it's the same across board. There are other Nigerians who will even do it for you. Do you understand? But these companies are making so much in terms of billions of dollars. Some don't even pay tax and all that. And like you said, if government doesn't do something about it, we will just be announcing FDIs, but our people will be poorer. So now, thankfully, NESG has identified this. What is the solution from the policy angle and implementation angle? Because in this document, I saw something that Japan did, that in some areas you can't bring in foreign direct investment, somehow retaining some level of support for their people in terms of skills and general development. Thank you. Local content. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we should, no, I think we should take it one after the other so that you can, retain the question.
Okay, so well, it is the reality that we have seen in the country, and it's something that needs to be addressed. So as part of the recommendation, we emphasize the need for the government to collaborate with these MNEs to be able to let the inflow of FDIs impact the workforce. So what we are suggesting is the government can create a platform where all these MNEs can bring together different of their workforces and collaborate with existing companies within that sector in Nigeria, or the government create a platform whereby they bring expatriates that came into the country with these MNEs to transfer the skills across the different levels of education, whether via TVET or some of our polytechnic or the university. Also, we have many special economic zones, free trade zones here and there in the country. As part, and most of these MNEs are the major beneficiaries of these locations. As we have in our free trade zone in Lagos, we have many of these companies around there. So as part of the things the government can do, the government can bring most of the departments in our universities, like agriculture, manufacturing, and all. So some of these departments, bring them down, some of these special economic zone, these free trade zones, such that the major economic activity happening there, the educational institute that is addressing that particular space can be in that zone, such that there is this transfer of workforce from that space to the industry. And at the same time, the industry can come into this space to say, this is what we need as per skills, and this is what we need, this is how we think we can help. And so, like, I was in LBS sometime, and there was a faculty that came in. The faculty was already working before he joined, I think, the University of California, thereabouts. So he came in as a resource person. And he came in to the university space. The LBS brought the person to come and also deliver based on his experience. So something like that, an avenue for such can be brought on board, such that there will be interaction between government has a role to play, and there is an interaction between many of these MNEs and our employees. Also, as part of the agreement for the government to give certain incentives or the other, the government can make it compulsory that, for you to be able to access this facility, especially in the free trade zone, special economic zone, this has to be major part of the things you need to do for our employees.
All right, thank you very much. Let's jam our hands together for him. Madam.
My name is Dr. Mrs. Jane Chukwudebelo. I work with the Federal Institute of Industrial Research as the acting head of environmental technology and the climate change desk officer. I want to thank you all for wonderful presentations and good research output. And mine is a sort of concern, because a lot of results like this has been done in Nigeria, and most often they are in the shelf. I want to know if there's any way these results can get to the policymakers, and when they are put into policy, how it can be pushed so that it will be implemented for the grassroots to have the fields, for it to be able to have impact on Nigerians. Thank you.
Right. So do you want to answer, or you would like to answer? Sorry, just a minute. And practically he said it. That's why we have the NESG, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. The idea is for you to also react so that we can pick priority areas, as these results are being delivered, and also as much as possible incorporate them. So the NESG, you will know, we have policy commissions embedded through the structure. The idea is to pick out of all of these topics, areas where we think should be prioritized as far as education is concerned. That's your responsibility, is to tell us. I mean, she spoke about FDI. who knows, maybe because of our comments, we'll begin to think, oh, well, maybe this is an area we should look more closely to, you know? So if you were asked to choose one area among all of these papers, what would you be considering? Oh, because you said all of the results, so maybe all is fine. All right, sir, you said you wanted to.
All right, so my name is Tayo Loshimi. I work with an organization called Mind the Gap. So one of the critical elements from that is looking at policy lacunas, you know, which is what you have alluded to, and it's real. All professors, you know, you want your work implemented. So if you can create a scenario between, you know, a Silicon Valley and where that is like the incubation room for driving the American technology economy, I think that's what we are all looking for. Ab initio, I think it's not a government business. And I think we have placed too much on governments and we have become so unengaged. Nigerian citizens are too government focused. You know, just a quick digression, just last Friday at the ILO event in Abuja, a guy from the creative sector said, we know that the government is not coming for us. So we took care of ourselves. Today, they are investing, they are actually contributing over 2% to Nigeria's GDP. So my conclusion is this. One of the things we are encouraging people in your sector is to find a way of aggregating all these policies. All this have been said here. Do we have a place where, and I think it's also a statement to NESG, to aggregate it so that it become like a resource pool where Nigerian youths can be directed to by way of part of their curriculum, not as you like it. So for example, we do a lot of work with NYC and we're launching a project that is called Ijoba. Ijoba simply means find a way of mainstreaming your career aspiration to a policy or a research document. And it's taking a whole lot of fly because we recognize that when this guy realized that every single budget of Nigerian government is connected to some policies, to some research work, to some SDG, to some policy. And if you really want to do well in your business, you are better off connecting your work to the very intelligent research work that has been done by these professors and all those things. So what I'm trying to say is we as NESG, as stakeholders, we cannot continue to wait. Government will do their part, but we need to take it up to ensure that we can do advocacy for many of these programs and we can actually include them in what we do. That's just my intervention. But quick, can I now use the opportunity to ask my question?
I'm not sure, you took a bit of time, but it's fine, please go ahead.
All right, so my question basically is this, and it also speaks to what has been said. Yes, so much research work, that's the truth. But in all the recommendations, one of the things I'm asking, and I'm curious to know whether we are considering the intervention of the Nigerian people, particularly the youth, whether as part of the parameters of ensuring that FDI is improved, the use of FDI and the result we get from FDI is improved, whether they improve for people, you know, connecting with health is improved, all those various papers, whether we are considering the role that an average Nigerian can play. So that in terms of what we call mainstreaming all these propositions into the aspiration of Nigerian youth. So, I mean, just curious.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so is your hand up, sir? Okay, so I'm only going to take, I've been asked to take only one more, but I saw that your hands had been up for quite a while on this side. So I'm going to take the three of you, but you need to be very quick. Did you want to address your question to somebody particularly, or you just want? Was it a question or a comment? It was a question. Mr. Muslim.
Okay, I think there's role for everybody, both the government and individual to play. For example, in the context of the study that I was involved in, one thing that came to my mind is that, but it didn't arise from the finding of the study. That is it possible if you look at some of other literature, for example, boosting girl child education education by making most of their teachers to be female teachers have been found to be very effective. So role model has a lot to play. At the time I was thinking the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations is from Gombe State. She's a Fulani woman. So if we project that to people who are from that part of the country who think that their business is to be out of the school, they could actually be incentivized to get into the school system. I mean, when I was in the university, Professor Jubril Aminu was the Minister of Education at the time. He's from Adawa State, he's a Fulani man, and he's a professor of cardiology. So, but these things they are not out there for most people from that part to know that there are possibilities for them, because you can raise your aspiration level if you know that people who look like you have done this and you can achieve. And I think that that's an area where people outside of the circle of government can do. NESG can do that. They can do a lot of local publications that can get across to those people. You know, you have achievers among you. You have people who are heroes, people who are exceptionally intelligent. I remember the former daughter of Dagash finished with the first class in chemical engineering from University of Oxford. She got a scholarship to go to Imperial College for a PhD straight away. So if you project people like that before underrepresented groups, you will be able to support them and get them to.
Right. Thank you very much, Mr. Musa. Please let's clap for him. Thank you for that insight. You raised the question, I mean, in your comments, you talked about, which was really quite interesting, the lack of engagement by Nigerians generally. And I'm hearing we focus too much on government. The truth also is that there's some low-hanging fruits, you know, in terms of structures that government needs to put in place. And these are not hard structures. The reason Nigerians generally love to engage, I mean, look at us here, but without the right, so in advanced environments, the polling system gets people to be part of the process of decision-making. So you go there and you express, you know, is it that you decide you want a particular area to be focused on or to be prioritized and so on and so forth. We don't have that in Nigeria. And so we're clusters, we're little. So look at the fantastic work, you know, you say you're doing. If we don't meet you, we're not going to hear. A lot of other people are never going to hear what you're doing. And that's really unfortunate. We don't have systems that educate us enough about what other, you know, groups are doing about, and to give us an avenue to opine on them. And government needs to do that. It's not the private sector that is going to do that. The private sector is not strong enough and is not unselfish enough to achieve that kind of mileage. It's government that has that interest to be able to cover the entire country, to get people all over Nigeria to engage on matters that are pertinent to the growth of Nigeria. It will take government efforts. Yes, sir.
My name is Jacob Ipoga. I work with the Continental Economic Magazine. My question is on the health insurance. If you look very well, it is the employed, the 805 workers that are insured. And once you're out of that job, your insurance package go. I remember in 2015 when I got a letter as a manager in the bank, I got a health cover this of close to ₦1 million for me, my wife, and my children. But the next Saturday, I was going to the electrician working on my car. They said the guy is not around. They said, the guy had been sick. I was still there when they said the guy dropped dead. Watch up. They said it's an attack. You see, it sounds funny. Who attacked him? The guy has not been checking his BP. Now, the unemployed are not insured. And the government is proposing 8,000 naira for us, whether per month or per year. Now, can we ask the NESG and the BMGF, because I knew he was Nigerian some time ago, to advise the government, invest your 8,000 naira in the health sector so that every Nigerian should be covered. Don't do it through your general hospitals because we know the level of corruption there. Do it through the churches and the mosque. Because when they say that Jesus Christ will come if you don't do this, they will do it. And when they say if you don't do, you go to Argentina, they will do it. So everybody will now be covered. And I think if that is addressed, some of our problems are solved. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. I think these are some of the consequences of the fact that we have a very large informal sector in Nigeria. And because of the configuration of health insurance scheme in Nigeria, it's more focused on the formal sector. So I think what I would advise the government is how to expand health insurance coverage to the informal sector participants. This has been achieved in Ghana, countries like Ghana and Rwanda that have achieved at least 69% and 90% coverage rates respectively at the moment. So I think one way we can do that is to improve and strengthen the public sensitization of the people, the market women, the traders, and all that on the benefits.
Hold on. I want us to be a bit practical. This is a very, well, it's important to me because I also represent the Health Commission. You said they've done it in Uganda and Ghana. Not the percentage. How? Rwanda, how? What? Because I know about Egypt and I know what they did. So tell us how they did it. I mean, Ghana is not far, right? How did they do that? How did they capture the informal sector? Because Nigeria really needs to do something about this informal sector.
Yes, I think one way is number one is that who is covered within the insurance company, within the insurance scheme. At least these countries, they covered both the poor and the vulnerable groups. And who pays for the health insurance in terms of what part of the cost is being insured? In these countries, in Nigeria, out-of-pocket spending is the major source of health care financing. In this part of the world, what they did was to exempt the poor and the vulnerable from paying insurance premiums for some of these health packages. So they now focus on a mix of healthcare financing like tax-based financing. So they also focused on donor donations. They also have all these companies, CSR, okay, and also what's it called? Donor partner contributions and all that. So what I think we can do is to explore. And aside from that, Nigeria, in terms of sustainable fund markets, the market that focuses on SDG related sectors, Nigeria has not been doing quite good on the global market. At least Nigeria is attracting like $8 billion per annum. So, but the market globally is worth over $2 trillion. Okay, so how can we tap into the market? And this market focuses on financing sectors, SDG-related sectors like health, education, that's water, sanitation, and hygiene. So how do we tap into some of these long-term investments? So it's not a matter of the government alone. The government should improve its spending on healthcare. As we know, the government is yet to realize the 15% benchmark. So so government needs to to spend more on healthcare, but also we need to explore a number of other sources of healthcare financing so that the burden will not be too much on the government. And also we can be able to close the health funding gap, health infrastructure gap that's very huge currently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please let's clap for him. Thank you for those insights. If you permit me, I'll also maybe say a few things. And what I want to say is that, you see, it's almost, and I think the reason why we're not arriving at particular solutions for this informal sector is that it's a hard nut to crack. Because again, we're talking about providing a service for somebody who we've not identified is able to pay for it. Now, what I observed that was done in Egypt is that, so they have the Ministry of Health like us, but under that Ministry of Health, they carved out, they call it the Health Authority, and they made the Deputy Minister of Health to be head over that second group. So he reports to the Ministry of Health. Now, what they've done, which we've not, because you've said, yes, we need to increase spending on health, yes, but we need to realize that health is largely part of our human capital development. And it correlates with the growth of the economy of Nigeria and Nigerians, especially the workforce. We've not been able to draw this correlation intentionally. And that's why it's still, there's still a bit of disparity between them. Now, what they've done is that everybody, whether you are a vulcanizer, whether you run a saloon, whatever you do, there's a pay as you earn annually. Whatever you do, there's a percentage that you need to pay. So for people who don't earn a lot, you pay minimally, and it covers your whole family for the year. But those who earn a lot also they pay as you earn. But all of you have access to what the health authority is, that because now they've recognized health as not just an expenditure sector. It's a sector that they want even people from all over Africa. So people who go to the UK, to Europe, to go and get health services, they want them to come into Egypt. So they are really advancing healthcare in Egypt so that you can attract, tourist health. Meanwhile, all of these facilities are also available to the supposedly least man in Egypt. So everybody has access. So these general hospitals that we say, of course, maybe they are less corrupt, I don't know. But these same general hospitals, they have decided, because they showed us, prototypes. These are advanced medical, centers. Everybody will get access. The poor, the rich, the middle class, the elite, everybody will get access to quality healthcare through the insurance scheme of pay as you earn. And I think that's something Nigeria can learn from. Let's not overcrack our brains around it. If we keep thinking, oh, this guy's going to afford, they are never going to afford it. It's you and I that are going to pay for them. It's not going to happen. The man who earns 30,000 naira a month, if you tell him, bring 1,000 naira, if you bring 1,000 naira to 30,000 naira that you earn every month, or 500 naira, 600, maybe 6,000 in a year, all of your children, including yourself, have access to healthcare like me. You think he will not part with that money? He will. So we need to customize our solutions. Well, it's just a thought, and I think it worked in Egypt. 3 people here. After them, they will come back. Because you know what? When they raised up their hands, your hands were not up. It was their hands. So I need to do it with a sense of.
Thank you very much. My name is Said Olaiwola. I work with Federal University of Technology, Akure, Department of Economics. So I have 2 questions, but let me start from, because of what you said, that's why I wanted to ask you. Yeah, you just said something about health insurance, pay as you earn health insurance in Egypt. So my question about that is that very health insurance, can you say compulsory or voluntary one? Fine. Well, then we can call it a social health insurance. Because if it's a voluntary one, you are not likely to get as much as, income from it. Because those who are poor health status are likely to run and join the health insurance. But those who consider the health status being good are not likely to join. You understand? And then, and people may also be encouraged to overuse healthcare. If you have ordinary health, they may told to hospital, etc. There may be a kind of overconsumption. Okay, well, if it is mandatory, fine, then we can call it social. But if it is not mandatory, you are going to, what that kind of problem. Sir? Okay, fine. Fine. Thank you. Now, I will also come from that health insurance, and I want to ask Mr. Wasil. No, I was not here when you started your presentation, but I still met part of your presentation. And my question is, the health insurance that you study or discuss, is it a social health insurance or private health insurance, or you match the 2? Because as in Nigerian case, if you match the 2 and study 2 together, your recommendation for referral is more likely to be applicable to social health insurance and not private health insurance. Yes, because if Nigeria presently coverage of health insurance is approximately about 30%, and out of that 30%, almost about 97% of it are social health insurance, not private. So it's always good to differentiate that, and also probably carve out employee-based or employer-based health insurance too. That's another. Then another thing is that there was a study, because I mentioned something about informal group in 2012 about informal sector, and the study was sponsored by National Health Insurance Scheme. It was called a voluntary contributory health insurance scheme in Nigeria, and the aim was to find out how to capture or bring the informal sector into, health insurance scheme. Probably you try to get that document, read it, and say something or bring out something on how the informal sector can actually be covered. Because presently, majority of those who are covered are formal sector, group, not informal. Thank you. Even if you look at Nigeria Living Standard Survey, question about health insurance on private, empty, 0, 0, 0. So maybe you need to try and, partition into private, employer-based, and social health insurance, so that your recommendation will ever be more meaningful. Thank you.
Okay.
The second and last question, sir.
Let me quickly respond to that.
To Dr. Adewale, sorry, to Dr. Adewale. Yeah, you mentioned one of the striking things to me in your studies, your recommendation, and that of taking Quranic education to confessional something. I said, if we're still thinking in that line, we may still not have a satisfactory outcome, especially in the north. Because you see, the Quranic education before the coming of Western education was already accepted in a large scale. It's only because of the mistrust they have concerning the Western education. So I think, why can't we in line of taking Western education to Quranic? If you get to the north, almost every corner has one Quranic school or the other. Almost every corner of the northern state. So why can't we think in line of integrating conventional education into the Quran instead of saying we are still bringing Quranic education to conventional study for us to have a satisfactory outcome? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Quickly respond.
It was a comment, it was not a question. He said you should consider it.
Yeah, we teach. That's why in the presentation, if you look at it, okay, you were not here, so we partitioned into private, public, and we look at the overall. So we have 3 specifications with the way that we estimated. But to address the informal sector, I think one peculiar thing about Nigeria is the lack of trust. There is that trust deficit in the system. So if we can build public confidence and trust, okay, some of these market women traders, they make money per day. I even know how much they make. But when you tell them health insurance, they say, no, they want to steal, they want to take my money away.
But don't they want to take their money away?
Yes, they won't take their money away, but at least the lack of trust and all that.
Would you trust the Nigeria as you are?
Sir? Ma?
Would you trust the systems in Nigeria as you are? You would. If I was a market woman, I won't part with my money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that we need to build that trust and confidence. We need to build it. So once we build it, if the government puts in place an initiative, we will accept also wholeheartedly. So that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr.
Sorry.
Is it your topic you want to talk to?
No, to help my colleague. Yeah. Is this issue of health insurance we are talking about, the issue of informal economy. There was a particular Nigerian Economic Society. We discussed this extensively. We had a heated debate on informality and economic growth. If you read the work of Areti, Professor Areti in Nairobi, and so many of them have written on informality. So in conclusion, what we argue was there should be institutional framework. The informal sector should be constitutionalized. And we push it to National Assembly during a Soludo regime. So we did that all that during in Nigerian Economic Society conference, so that because the issue of health insurance we are talking about is just 1 or 2% of the entire population that benefit from health service providers. So what happened to my grandmother in the village? What happened to other people? These are informal economy. But the moment government institutionalize it, make it a law that everybody will have to register. Government has to create that enabling environment so that everybody should be captured. As well, but there's no political way to do that. And the issue of 8,000 naira, this my gentleman talked about, we have what we call final consumption. You know, it's not sustainable. You know, we cannot finance final consumption. Giving people 8,000 naira for 6 months. After 6 months, what happened? So we cannot even channel to health sector, nada, but we need to repair our infrastructure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Mr. Jawali, I know that a comment was passed to you. I just want to list on that comment. It's also to begin to think about who would regulate this. If Quranic schools become, you know, the order of the day, who are the regulators and how transparent is the curriculum and the ways of teaching? How accessible will it be to the average man that is not religiously centric? That will be mine. Do you want to react?
Okay. First of all, to my friend, you know, the advice is okay, but you see, we are going to have scale problem when you now have too many small schools spread across. It will raise the cost of providing education. But what I think have been done in other countries and what some of the initiative in the North has is to bring their teachers. They take the teachers and the students and bring them within the formal school system. And if you look at the result of Professor Yewa's study, they found out that distance to school does not actually matter. So it means that the mere fact that the school is far away is not deterring an average person from the North from going to school. All they need is just take them with their malam and take them to the school system and then and convince them. But what has been happening is that the pace at which they are doing it has been very slow. And that's the reason why we've not been able to get many of the out-of-school children into the school system. If they have been able to pick up the pace and push a lot of resources in that direction, I think a lot would have happened. And there was a study done by UNESCO, I think published in World Development 2014, who was also raising the same issue, that the pace of at which they have been doing it is not fast enough, being able to take many of these students out of their present.
Thank you very much. Let's clap for him. Thank you. Are you the same person?
Speaker one, how do you define good policies? Is it relative or universal? Speaker two, why is there a preference today for life insurance over death insurance? A man can have insurance when you die, 500,000 naira, his club, his church, his office. Speaker three, educational level of households and a negative human capital investment decision. How did you arrive at that? I would have thought that a more educated household would have positive correlation with human capital investment. There are fears about AI. Speaker four, what controls are we putting in place to deal with the fears of AI? Speaker five, why only Quranic education? What happens to the mentorship model of the Igbo traders? Thank you.
No, you were just sitting quietly like you did not have, you know. Please, just a minute each. Let's take it very quickly. I hope you all got your questions.
Yes, I got mine because
One, two, you meant five now.
He mentioned five questions. Okay.
Okay, it's true. Yes. Let's take everything. Please listen to your.
Hi, my name is Oyinka Solade and I work with ZCrest Group as HR manager. I have a feedback first. We got the invite to this session yesterday and I'm really stressed right now because 5 papers, my normal experiences with private, I've never participated in anything like this. But I sat here throughout and I kept telling my colleague that it's like, we're just here to listen and let us be going on. But I can't be struggling to contribute to something on 5 papers. Time is not enough. That's the thing. If you really want us to participate, you want to hear our feedback, let us be able to reflect on what you said, think, react. That's how to get our feedback. If you want to get something important from us, you can't be rushing us this way. I work in. So let me go to my questions. Yes, I am stressed. It's just because I realized that this is Nigeria and I didn't want to give up. I would have just, let's be going to our. So I think my feedback first, you already talked about what I want to talk about, trust. If you say I should pay for stuff, I don't trust things that much to want to pay for it. And that's what affects everybody, right? Why is there no proper enforcement of the health insurance scheme? For example, when you were talking, I quickly downloaded the National Health Insurance Act 2021, and it provides for, at least if you have an employer. So we're talking about private sector here, like it's all taken care of. It's not all taken care of. It says if you're an employer and you have at least 5 employees, you must have what they call health insurance, but you know that is not even being enforced. If contributory pension scheme could be gotten to the place it was, that they enforce it, and we all know we have to do it once we hit 5, why is it so hard for the NIHIA to do what they're supposed to do, right? At least let's know that some sector even gets it. Old age does not compare enrollment in health insurance. Under that place, you talked about the addition of chronic illnesses, high cost chronic, like they did in Netherlands. I don't even think that's the only place it's relevant for. I think it's a key to getting your informal and even all the creative sector, tech bros and all that onto your health insurance scheme. Because right now I can be doing very well. If I run into kidney illness, 50 million I'm out of. That's the way you can get me to put my money. All those people, that's the way you can get me. If you put chronic illness on it, what's the NHIA doing? I want to know if in your records you check, because it looks like all these things, the policy has 31 pages, a lot of things, but it doesn't look like they're driving enforcement, even for the 3%. Thank you.
I don't know. If now she spends a whole day, I don't know what she will now say. Yeah, no, but we appreciate. She's saying that the topic is really important. Number one, she got a late invitation. She wasn't able to spend time on it. So we really take that feedback. We'll go and think about it. And yeah, possibly make some events. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Oluwadara from Federal Institute of Industrial Research. My contribution is tying paper 2 and 3. 2 is talking about health insurance adoption, and 3 is talking about getting children enrolled in schools. What if we tie the 2 together? That you can tell parents, if you enroll your children in school, they can get basic medical services. So, for instance, you enroll 1, 2 children, and if they have malaria, for instance, that is covered. That would encourage parents to want to put their children in school. And when they come in to enroll, you can tell them with extra 1,000 for your family per month, we can cover the whole family. So I believe we can tie this together. Then for the aged, someone that has served the government for probably a company for 35 years, and suddenly his health insurance is off. We have a contributory pension scheme. We can talk to the pension fund administrators. They can earmark something into health insurance for retirees as well. We see some of them aged and they go to queue for their pensions and they are looking very frail. So if we can tie that to the contributory pension, it should be able to assist in that light. Then for human capital development, we are talking about everybody. Reorientation and advocacy is important. Use influencers for the informal sector. There are people they recognize and they respect. Let them go to their people and talk to them and let them know the benefits of enrolling. If Iyawoloja tells me that if I don't enroll, they will close my shop for the next 1 week, I will enroll. So these are the areas we have to look at, not just focusing on the formal sector. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's clap for those observations and comments. I hope we were able to digest some of them.
Again, my name is Mr. Robert Ipoga. Still on the health insurance. I know some organizations that give out loans, specifically like LAPO. What they do is that you must belong to a group. before you are given a loan. And
What
I'm
kind
not
of
su-
group?
No, you have to come under a group. You have to
Right,
form a group,
okay,
whatever
to
trade you
apply.
to apply. Okay, now I am saying now that if you are a organizer, that's a trade, and there's an association of organizers. Why is government not making it in a way that every association that is, that is a trade that have an association should be registered and every member captured? It's a way of recognizing them, and it will be easier to get them into the insurance scheme, health insurance scheme. If you are a shoemaker, there's an association, and in your area, you have to be a member. That is another way of recognizing them too. I think they should think in that line. Then it now means that every of those associations have to be registered either with the state government or local governments or whatsoever, so that we can have a channel to pass this information and have a pool of participants.
I know for free that those are structures that are being considered to address informal sector. So you're very much on point.
Thank you very much. My name is Bukola from the University of Lagos Entrepreneurship and Skills Development Center. I'm excited that 3 papers in this room addressed education, and that means it's a key variable if we're going to achieve success. So I don't want to, waste our time, but as drivers of impact in the space of technology and school participation. Under the prof that talked about ICT, Dr. Motosho, thank you very much, that talked about the use of e-learning materials and digital technology for education. I carried out a study during COVID, and I found that sometimes access to devices might not be the main solution. And that's because university students were coming up online, putting off their videos, sleeping off, and the lecturers were there sending in 325-page documents to students to go and study. There was a wide gap. Government was putting in money, but the real users, the real beneficiaries had issues with driving impact. How can we create solution in this space? Thank you very much.
Right, thank you so much. Before the last question, before he restates his questions, I also, and thank you, Madam, for those comments for Dr. Motosho. In fact, what my recommendation really is, I would have recommended that you rejig your topic to embrace more of the ICT than COVID-19, So we're saying the different impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, because again, you want your topic to be relevant in time, in another 5 years. COVID-19 is phasing out. Technology, ICT, is a major component of human capital development, and taking it at the educational level is, and we're not talking enough about it. I think it's imperative that we take it, take the bull by the horns, and it's a lie. I don't know.
Okay, thank you. My name is Bright Area. I work with Pan Atlantic University. My first point to you on your presentation is a question. If today something like COVID comes, how prepared are our public institutions, primary, secondary, and universities, to be able to have for learning to take place? My answer is no, right? For all dimensions, and I will say that's one point. The second point is that your topic is talking about the implication for policy review, and I was waiting to see that policy review, right? Why was I waiting for that? When COVID came, some universities like mine went online. We did our exams online, but the query we had was from NUC. NUC came up to say it's not allowed, or all kinds of story. But we did our exams perfectly online. They were writing their exams from home. Those who were supposed to fail my course, they failed. Do you understand? Yes, they failed. So what do we provide? So my point is that for you to do that study well, probably you need to visit different schools and see the dimensions of what they implemented. And my point is that, for instance, in my own case, we're giving students monthly data, giving lecturers monthly data. I don't think private universities can do that, right? We're doing that. Public universities, I don't think they can do that. Even some private universities will not be able to do that. We're providing that data for them. We're also providing, different infrastructures for them. So when they were writing my exams, there are so many infrastructure we implemented that even from the back end, you will know what they are doing. Even when they put up their video, there are ways you can know whether something is taking place. So at the end, we'll find out that those who were failing the courses before were still failing. So my point is that we need to now go back. When you say policy review, you need to go back to NUC. What are the current policies? Would they be able to stand the terms, the time we're in terms of post-COVID and ICT world, right? That's one question to ask. We also need to move away from the former way of, I've taught both in the public and I was in University of Lagos for several years before I moved to that. So one of the things you see in most universities is that we set exam questions that are not, that they don't involve critical thinking. And that also brings us to the issue about what is the relevance of education in the current realities that will allow teaching to be critically involved, critical thinking involved, and then the question will also be involving that. But why I say that is that when we're to write that exam, we ensure that all questions will make you to think through. So whether you open your book or not, you have to think. Case studies, and that is kind of teaching that we should. And so that brings in the issue about policy review for your point. Thank you.
Right, but thank you very much for those very engaging comments and topics. It makes it really more realistic and so on and so forth. I have one last comment before he repeats his comment, and it's the fact that, and I think he tried to address it, but I'm going to do a bit of comparative. So when we're talking technology, I've had the opportunity to get some certificate courses online, and they weren't 350 pages. So this way, so when I want to go online to get a course or a certificate course, I go for Ivy League schools. So I go for the best deliberately, and I've done about 5. I've done Imperial College London. I've done London School of Economics, and so on and so forth. They make it so easy for us to interact with those courses. I mean, before I started, I was like, I hope I can cope. The moment I started, I got addicted, immersed. In the last 3 months, I've done 5 certificate courses, and it's so convenient. They make everything, they remind you, okay, go, now you're missing out on your assignment, it's very convenient. How as our educational structure, so in even, getting people interested and integrating ICT into the system, are they making it friendly to the users? That is very exact. That is very important. It's not enough to just think, oh look, your lecturers come and regurgitate everything that it's not going to work. People don't have that. When I'm in class, I can barely pay attention. You now tell me to be a screen away from you. I'm not going to sit down for 2 hours to be listening to it, except it's as engaging as possible. So all of these important things needs also to come into the context. It's part of the evolving process, exactly. I trust you, Prof. Last, so please, can you repeat the questions?
I have in my office. And the question is, when I die, is 500,000 each plus the 1 mile. Why is it becoming popular and yet health insurance is not popular? Educational level of households has a negative correlation with human capital investment decision. Did I hear you well? How come? Then there are question number 4. There are fears about AI. What controls are we putting in place? Then question number 5, why are you talking only about Quranic education? We have the very successful Igbo mentorship model. Why are you not looking at that? Thank you.
Right. I hope you all got the questions. So a lot of them were comments and I think feedbacks. Please don't, I don't think there's any point addressing feedback, just absorb them. The ones that you've already sorted, it's fine. But questions, please let's address questions as much as possible. We have
Thank you.
a minute each.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So in its sense, policy is relative, depending on the sector you are focusing on. What a manufacturing cluster, a manufacturing sector policy will be to drive FDI will be different from what the financial sector we will need. But the most important thing is that we design policy instrument that is going to address each of the sector based on their peculiarity.
Okay, thank you very much. The NHIA, what role does it play? I think there is need for a clear-cut operational guidelines, and I think up to now, up to date, we've not gotten that from the NHIA as to, okay, as to 3 dimensions that the WHO put in place as to the path towards achieving UHC, universal health coverage. One is who is covered. We don't have that yet. What services are covered? We don't have clear guidelines. And what proportion of costs are covered. So there is need for proper and clear-cut guidelines, operational guidelines for the operationalization of NHIA. And life insurance and health insurance. Why is life insurance assurance popular, but health insurance is not popular? Well, I think, yeah, both has to do with insuring against future financial risks. Okay, so but you know, we have that, just like we said earlier, and as arose from our conversations today, is that there is this belief that, okay, if I'm healthy, why take health insurance? So I think it's more of how do we motivate people? How do we incentivize people? So it's not a matter of compulsion, just like the pension scheme and all that. So just like some other suggestions that's come up today. So I think there's need to bring in the informal sector and how to put in place strategies to ensure that everyone is covered, both formal and informal sector participants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I answer your question, I would like to share this with all of us. It's my own experience. I'm from Niger State. I'm a teacher with University of Abuja Department. That was a period. I and some of my colleagues who are politicians, we wanted to see former head of state, that is IBB. I'm from Niger State. We have haven't gone to the uphill. You know, you live at uphill. If you have been to Mindanao, if you have gone to see Babangida. So the secretary gave us a form to fill. Your name, where are you coming from, local government, are you an indigenous or for all that. So I met a lot of people, politicians, senators, former governors, and all dignitaries were seated. Okay, they gave me a form I filled. I'm Professor Mohammed Yelua from University of Abuja, from La Pai local government, all that. They passed my paper in. Professor from Niger State, tell him to come inside. And I met a lot of people there, you know. So when I met IBB, I said, okay, you can see, he looked at me and I said, professor from which university? I said, University of Abuja. When do you become professor? I won't tell you that. I mentioned it to him. I said, you can see, you are talking to former head of state. So what am I saying? And he told me, and I'm repeating it. The only thing can bring the child of a poor man and a child of a big man is education. So maybe you have to read my paper. Education is a key and is positively related to human capital development. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me start with the last question. Like I've said earlier, AI has come to stay and we have to embrace it. The earlier, the better. And it's very important that each country has its own way of regulating how AI is to be used, the kind of openness that should accompany the use of AI in each country. And I know the United Nations.
Why are you going to, why are we talking about AI? Why don't we talk about the basic information technology. AI is machine learning. That's
Sorry, excuse me. Response to it from the last speaker.
on
Yes.
artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence. Okay, so I know
Doctor, are you
United-
angry?
I'm not-
I apologize. I was
No.
just being curious, you know.
No problem. At the United Nations, I know I was at a conference in Kigali, Rwanda, on AI conference in Africa. And I know the United Nations bodies are doing a lot to come up with ethics around the use of AI. So, and I know, I'm very sure the Nigerian government too, the authorities, they are also working tirelessly to come out on how to control the use of AI, what you can use with it, and the kind of openness that should accompany AI. So I'm very sure the government and the relevant stakeholders in that space are working on it. Then on the issue of the topic, I need to say this, that this topic was picked and approved because the impact of COVID-19 on human capital was one of the sub-themes of that proposal call. Yeah, it was one of the sub-themes of it. It's not out of context. Yes, I agree, we may need to change it, but it's not as if, because then when this proposal call was put out, it was one of it, the impact of COVID-19. So it's not out of order. People still write on Spanish flu and things like that. For those of us in the academics, you know, I understand your concerns. I'm happy about it and all that. Then you asked about how would the workers or the teachers. In our recommendation, one of the key things that we recommended is the need for teachers training and retraining on how to even keep the students alert during classrooms. And, you know, this is just like, it's 9 slides. We are restricted to 9 slides. They are NESG can. So we have a full report on all the issues that have been discussed, are well grounded and well researched and well recommended in our policy, in our full report. So we have the issue came up on the teachers saying they don't even know how to use these things. Not as if they don't have access. Some of them don't know how to operate simple Microsoft. That's Ben, how to create rooms, how to do that. So these are some of the recommendations that is not about you throwing out those things to them. They must be trained. And if need be, they must be retrained on how to use this equipment, digital equipment. And that is about it. Any other area I've not covered? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, at the very beginning, there are so many things that I wanted to look at with respect to school participation. And then eventually I had to narrow it down to just that. But studying Igbo society itself is one, you can make a field of study out of it. Last year, Professor James Robinson, one of your resource persons, he came to organize a conference, University of Nigeria, just on the Igbo tribe. And he's an economist. From the team, he sent some of the, I couldn't go, I was maybe a bit afraid, but he wasn't afraid actually, all the way from Chicago. To say, why is it that, what account for why they are so successful as a group of people, particularly considering the fact that what I said, they didn't have a governmental structure. Forget about the obese that they now have. Those are post-colonial creations. The traditional Igbo society, if you read things fall apart, didn't have, yes, an egalitarian society, so it didn't have. So it's a special group that you need to study a whole lot of dimensions. I think I will take note of that. And then subsequently, hopefully subject to data availability, I probably would be exploring that. Then somebody talked about the role of teachers. I think the teachers, what I do at my own level, where I have to interact with students, because you see, there's a lot of despondency across board, across students. The expectation about the future is very low. There was a student who graduated, had a 2-1, and then he was saying, I don't think this certificate is useful. I said, don't say that. Don't say that. All you need is to just believe in yourself, continue to be involved in self-development. Because some of the things they see around, when they see a lot of this, they say, one day I was walking into Futa, and then the student were going to hold a talk, and the title is Schooling is Scam. That's the title of that talk. I didn't attend, but when issues like that start popping up in the minds of students, you know exactly that they are taking hold. Yes, they are looking at the general macroeconomic environment and say, is it worth it actually going to school? We've been having difficulty now trying to persuade one of our students who just have, I think about 2 courses to come back. I have been calling him now. He has skipped 2 sessions. And unfortunately, I lost my phone. So I lost the original contact I had with him. And so I don't know whether he will still come back and complete his studies. So there is this despondency that students, we find it difficult getting students to come to class. And we ask, where are you? Where did you go? Why can't you report? So those issues are there. But I think we still continue to push it as teachers, try to get them encouraged that the future is bright in spite of everything that we see around us.
Thank you very much, distinguished presenters. It's been a wonderful session with you, very insightful. I'm sure we're more enlightened about the topics that have been presented, and I'm sure they've all taken the feedbacks. NESG will get back to the audience and to you on what the next steps are. I have the pleasure of inviting Dr. Tom Kimani, the lead manager training African Economic Research Consortium, AERC, to please come and give us the closing remarks. Please let's clap for him.
Thank you very much. I can tell you this has been very interesting. I think amongst the dissemination workshops that I've attended, this has been more engaging. So give yourself a round of applause. What I can say is that the discussion does not stop here. I know there are quite a lot of input that you have gotten from the floor, which will help actually improve your paper and even do another one. Why not? Because these are the people in the marketplace. These are the people in the industry. These are the people who understand what is supposed to be discussed. And when you incorporate that input, that is what is important. That is how you will be able to influence policy. So for me, I don't have much to say, but to say thank you. Especially thank you to the researchers for finding time. I cannot take it for granted that I know how busy you can be, but out of your busy schedule, you have been able to create time to come and disseminate. And I hope that the dissemination, what you have disseminated out of your research output is what we are hoping will help to inform policy in Nigeria. And also, why not look for people here who are experts in the area, partner with them. Maybe they are the ones who will be able to make sure that whatever you are writing about reaches the policymakers and is not put in the shelf. Like one of the participants has said. And great thanks to the moderator. She has done a good job. Give her a round of applause. To the NESG, you have done a commendable job. I mean, you have brought people. I can tell you, is like each and every one of you has contributed to this great debate. So to you, thank you. And to the rest of us, give yourself a round of applause. So for me is thank you. This will be communicated to Nairobi, how you have done a commendable job. And I know there is another team that is coming here to Nigeria. I don't know. But I think also facilitated by NESG, is it? Yeah, so you people are doing a good job. So give yourself a round of applause, NESG. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. we've come to the end of the in-country dissemination workshop on human capital development in Africa, case study Nigeria. It's been a pleasure having you as the audience and having my humble self as the moderator with these distinguished researchers. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, I think it was an interesting session. Saw you on LinkedIn. Oh, yeah.